pull back to item B, which is the EUSD enrollment and test score report.
Yes, and I'm going to, oh, great. Thank you, Mark. We're gonna queue this up. For those of you that are, let me get the remote control and do it that way. You have a copy of the PowerPoint in your packet there? Hope that I do this properly. Where do you, how does this work? Okay, Mark, do you know how this works? So, it would help if I turned it on, huh? We had this all practiced. Yeah, there you go. It's right here. Thank you, man. All right. So I just wanted to thank you all giving this opportunity to give this update on enrollment and our student academic performance. So this is a sort of a high-level overview, and you can go to www.cde.gov to get multiple pages of information about our student data, but I wanted everybody to have a general overview of where we are right now. It's always nice to start with our mission and remind us of why we're always all here. As you know, the Emery Unified School District is committed to providing each student with a rigorous education and welcoming, safe environment that supports students' learning, and where there is tolerance, respect, engagement with people from different cultures, backgrounds, and beliefs. We have 3 guiding principles. We hold high academic expectations and social professional expectations for all of our students and staff. We create a sense of family, and we inspire to support innovation to end racist and classist practices. Our purpose, to put it simply, is that we're here to create conditions so that our students can thrive. As you requested, this is our most up-to-date enrollment information to date. I've listed out both the Annie Yates and the Emery Secondary School data by grade level in terms of the enrollment numbers. Big picture, we're moving in the right direction. Our goal is to have cohorts of 60 completely, fully, and consistently enrolled by the fall of 2015 when we move into the ECCL Center, so that we can continue to grow those cohorts year by year to cohorts of 70 and then 75, I believe it is, so that the center itself will be fully enrolled. But right now we're striving to create a steady state of 780. And we're moving along that track. Right now, if you look in the lower right-hand corner of that slide there, from 2011, we increased by 29. In 2012, we increased by 10. So we're up to 750 students. So we're really excited about that as some good news. We're not declining in enrollment right now. In terms of demographics, this is also a little important piece of data. Our K-12, our 3 largest subgroups are African American, white, and Asian. And you can see the percentages there. It's not super easy to see, but it looks a little bit better in the materials that you have. And for those that are in the audience, there are some packets up on the counter there for you of the same presentation. Continuing along.
Superintendent, on that, don't we have a significant Latino population?
Pardon me? A significant Latino population?
Yeah.
So
it's not represented at all in the.
So they are represented, and let's see. I believe that is number.
Number 5 is missing. I don't know if
Yeah,
that-
I believe-
Or if in fact, is number 7 the
That's a
Latinos,
good
not the
catch.
whites?
Yeah.
I don't think we're 25% white.
No. I know,
Did represent a rather dramatic increase.
that's a great catch. I will get that information to you in terms of to update the slide. What I can tell you, though, is, although these aren't apples to apples, our English language learner population, we have 55 total students, so it could be it could be a smaller number than it looks right there. And so it's not, because it's not represented, I can't share that with you. So, but I'll make sure that you have that update.
Maybe for next meeting.
Yeah, I'll bring that back. Whoops, let me go back for a second.
The numbers on the next page.
So the demographics, we have, what's important to know about this slide, not the one that I can't move back to, but the demographic slide, by socioeconomic, this is our free and reduced lunch numbers. So it's not in total, it doesn't represent all of the population like the demographic slide before, Josh, so I'll make sure that you have that precise number, Trustee Affelt, but this number here represents 582 of our students that are on free and reduced price lunch meals. And this was our count at the end of the year last year, so at the end of 2013, and we will have our updated count by October. So we'll make sure that you have that as well. But it represents essentially 84% of our population, and when you look at our total, you can see there by ethnicity who are the most impacted groups, and clearly it is Hispanic, white, and Asian, and African American. Okay.
Dr. Lindo,
Mhm.
the section that talks about the preschool students, is that a different program for the preschool?
So-
We're still talking about free and reduced lunch on this slide, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So is that a different program, or, because it seems like there's a lot of zeros?
So we have ECDC and early and the Head Start program.
Uh-huh.
And we essentially, we do not have in the Emery Unified School District a preschool program per se.
Okay, so this isn't
So-
counting our
correct.
folks in those programs. Okay.
Correct,
All right.
yeah.
And then I had one other comment on the enrollment. One thing I would be interested about on that enrollment slide that gives the totals is for our kindergartners, just to understand the kind of continuity that we're getting, is how many folks we have that have gone from either ECDC or Head Start into our kindergarten program. So people who are really kind of continuing with the city and the district that way.
Great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let me see, from preschool. All right, let's see, let me keep moving
Sorry.
along here. That's okay, no problem. This is, and if I'm going too fast, please let me know. I'll make sure that we get all your questions answered. So the main big picture, there were two presentations that were requested. One was to give some enrollment and demographic information. So this sort of represents the first one. And then the second presentation was to talk a little bit about our student academic performance and achievement. So what I'm going to do here on out is give you a big picture, 3 bottom line goals that are indicators that are on our dashboard. They are our KC pass rates and our high school completion rates, and a little quick overview on our STAR results. And these are 3 important indicators for particular reasons. The first one is in 1999, state law developed the California High School Exit Exam, requiring students in public schools to pass this test in order to earn a high school diploma. And this was in addition to the graduation requirements that are set by both the state and a individual school district. This standards-based assessment called Casey. It was based on, it's aligned to the English language arts standards and the mathematics standards, so the state standards that were established back in 1999. And in addition to that, around Casey, current law specifies that high schools must take the first exam in 10th grade. And so that 10th grade test is a really, really important positive indicator about the trajectory of those students and their ability to graduate from high school and then continue on in post-secondary areas or opportunities. And so, now granted, the law does require and give students the opportunity to take the exam both at the 11th and the 12th grade. They get multiple times to take the test. But as you can see, the work that our schools have been doing in our high school and our elementary school in particular, moving along those lines, we really are on track. We're actually, if you look at our composite score of 73.5%, including English language arts and math, we are right there with the state overall average. We're at 73.5, and the state is 73.8. So this is really, really exciting news to know that our 10th graders are well on their way. 73% of them have passed this hurdle already in 10th grade and passed the California High School Exit Exam. So it's really exciting. Let's see. In addition to that, let me move on. Let's see.
I would just note that the A to G overall on track rate of 73.5%, that's stating that of the class of 2015, where 3/4 of them almost are on track to graduate A to G. Am I reading that right?
So, no, let me clarify that.
Okay.
So I can bring that data back to you at a later meeting. But what this means is I'm going to be giving you two different pieces of data. I'm going to give you the class of 2015, which is the 10th grade class right now. This is the Casey exam. These students are on our new board policy, our A to G policy, which was established in 2009. So they'll be the second class. This first class is 2014 is the first class. On that new policy. So I'm just acknowledging that, to acknowledge the distinction, make the distinction, which is on the next slide. The class, if I can get that. The class of 2013 was not on they were on the old graduation requirement, the pre-2009 requirement. But I can get that information to you we'll do an A to G presentation at another date, if you like.
Okay. Well, it seemed that was an affirmative representation, 73.5% are on track, which is 3 times the state average. I mean, that's a good number if that is in fact what you're telling us.
What I'm telling you in this slide is that 73% of, if you combine the 76 and the 71%, the English language arts pass rate and the math pass rate, that 73% of our students pass the Casey exam.
Got it.
At 10th grade, first time they did it. So, and the other.
The A to G point is just a note.
It's just a point
Yeah.
to note. And I'll
Got
make
it.
sure I actually correct that on the formatting of the slide so it doesn't confuse people in the future.
Got it.
Thank you. Moving right along, on the class of 2013, our high school graduation rate, we also have a little bit of good news there. And again, this group is the group that entered as a very small cohort and was the last class on the old 2009 EUSD graduation requirements. This class, 82% of that class, the class of 2013, graduated, and that represents 3.5 percentage points above the state average. So we're really proud of that class as well. I think there was a bit of a Hawthorne effect, if I could just kind of casually just wax about that for a minute. When the board changed the policy, the high school started gearing up in 2009. They started gearing up to start changing the conditions and creating more rigor in the classrooms so that all the students, by the time the class of 2014 came along, would be well prepared and actually be able to graduate meeting the 80G requirements. So, but it had an effect on all the other classes. So, in this particular class, the class of 2013, represented by their high school graduation requirements, even though their requirements were less, many of them, 82% of them, stepped up, which was really terrific. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to talk a little bit about, and this is in your packet as well, the California Standards Test, or CST. These are the STAR results. California Standards Test, they were administered to all grade levels, grade 2 through 11, not all grade levels, excuse me, grades 2 through 11. It's part of the law. And this information was reported to our board at our board retreat on August 16th. If the board members will recall that, we sort of took a deep dive into our data, and we presented, at that time, our academic performance index had not been calibrated by the state yet, but I'm going to give you a little bit of that summary as well. In terms of a big picture overview, you have 2 slides in your packet. The first one is, it says slide 10 on it. It's right after this slide that you have in front of you right now. And then there is, in addition to that, a slide 11. What you have from those slides is an acknowledgement that on the state measure for academic performance and achievement, Anna Yates, as you look at that slide, grade 4 shows the strongest gains. It shows 17 out of 20 students scoring at proficient or advanced on the CST exam. It also shows gains and growth in grades 3 and 4 cohorts, grades 6 and 7, and grades 9 and 10. So these are very, very positive. But what's most important about slide 10, you see very little red there when you have the color copy. And the implication there is that when we look at our SED and our Hispanic subgroups, we are virtually eliminating the achievement gap. That does not mean that we don't have a lot of work to do. It absolutely does not mean that, because when I'm giving you the good news, and then I'll give you the challenges that we still face. But it does mean that the conditions that are being set in our schools are going a long way toward eliminating the achievement gap, and that's something that I'm not sure too many districts in the state can say. So it's a very, very, very positive point. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. So this is the slide that I was looking at here, where it doesn't show much red at all, but it is showing when you look at grades, 2012, particularly 2012 going to 2013, that you're seeing growth in all of in the subgroups. So now in the next slide that you have in front of you, this is the slide that sort of represents the challenges that we have, but also not just the challenge in the data, but also in what you also have in your packet, which is a letter from Tom Torlakson. It was a news release acknowledging the fact that the last system that we had, this CST system, was basically a kill and drill. It was sort of in some ways did not encourage or motivate deep or critical thinking, and that our new Common Core standards are, as we move toward the Common Core standards, the STAR assessment is going to shift to a smarter balanced assessment that is going to essentially begin the process that many of our teachers actually were already involved in terms of focusing on higher order thinking, critical thinking, those things beyond teaching to the test and kill and drill. The API is the accountability measure California uses to determine the academic progress of all pupils in schools in California and districts. This particular this particular API slide, however, this particular measure does not, however, compare apples to apples. So it doesn't compare, and that's one of the flaws in the test and the testing system statewide. It only compares, it compares year to year. It doesn't compare, fourth grade to fifth grade, or, or fourth graders to the same kids all the way along from cohort to cohort. And because of that, the API, but that being said, the API is looking for two things that are really important for a school district. So I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say the API is not a good measure, and it is something that we should pay attention to. But it does force us to think about our growth and consistency. So how consistent are we? And are we growing along that continuum? And as we see, for us, we did not grow. We actually took a dive. We experienced a drop at Anna Yates of about 40 points, and we also experienced a drop at the high school and district-wide. So that keeps us in program improvement status. We had anywhere from 6 to 8 substitutes. We had maternity leaves last year. We had teacher illnesses, and this is that consistency lens that we talk about, and that the API is documenting. That I think is really important to note.
Excuse me, Superintendent, if I can just add, from a parent perspective, many of the teachers also reported last year, and our statistics also we had a large influx last year of kids from California Conservation Corps, which closed down, and Santa Fe, which closed down. So there was a large influx of kids that were far below the kids that had been at NEH for a long time. So one of the dilemmas that the test scores don't really show is because our teachers, I think, worked doubly hard last year, but the test scores cover up when there's a large influx of kids that started out far below where we were initially. And I think that was alluded to earlier when you showed that enrollment jumped up by a large amount from the previous 2 years. So our teachers, unfortunately, and we've asked if there's a way to look at the test scores in terms of, what are the test scores for the kids who've been with us for a while versus those coming in. Unfortunately, that level of data analysis is very staff time consuming.
Well, if I may, John, can I say something? This is really important because the perception of the public is, of course, that Emeryville is really not in a good place, and they do not understand the difference between a stable suburban school district where the children are going right from kindergarten all the way up with a pattern, and so there is some way we should try to get this information, Josh, about the turnover and the influx, because it's not necessarily a stable system. Mm-hmm. And there's downsides to that. There's also opportunities to that. But the teachers especially I'm concerned about, because I think they're taking an undue hit because of what's happening.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I was also wondering, as far as the relocation of the school, what effects did that have on the student population? Because you moved the school from one location, you moved the school into Oakland. Was there a lot of new kids that came to that school, came to the school at the new location? And how many children decided not to go from the existing location to the new location?
Yeah, do you know the answer to that, Superintendent? Do we see much flux in the high school enrollment?
I do not. I'll have to get that for you.
Okay.
It's a good point, though, that the API is a crude mechanism that, as you said, compares this year's fourth grade scores to last year's fourth grade scores, it's looking at two different sets of kids.
Right.
Two different sets of fourth graders.
Correct.
And even if you looked at this year's fifth graders and last year's fourth graders, it's not all the same kids
That's right.
as Member Simon points out. Some people left, many people came. So we should, with our CalPADS numbers, be able to break out the individual scores of individual kids and track them more longitudinally and see how the new population did versus our existing population, and see if we had consistency at least with our prior population. That would be good.
Yeah, and
to
that's
know.
the work that the teachers are doing. Actually, they were working on that today, and they're drilling down on the kid-by-kid data to look at that. And one of the other things that I wanted to just highlight and note in this is that this particular, there was an article, I didn't make a copy of it for you guys, but it was in the Oakland Tribune and San Francisco Examiner. Statewide, 45% of the school districts in the state did not meet their API. And so not to, without excuses, I mean, we all have to face the brutal facts about the work we need to do, but the reality is that the API targets aren't being met. Part of it has to do with a shift to Common Core. Some of the school districts were working on that in earnest last year. They were trying out new pedagogy, and the same sort of thing we can expect to happen over the next 3 years as we transition to Common Core as well. So, and just to acknowledge Trustee Simon's point, I had a slide there, and it shows that there are many variables that affect our scores and the change in our API score. Not the least of which is demographics, things like Common Core rollout, instructional sequencing, staff changes, and also student mobility, which our district experiences anywhere from 2 to 7 was our average last year a month, either in or out. So.
Member Asher?
I want to make a comment both as a parent and someone who's been thinking about educational and social policy for a really long time, that I hate the tests. I hate them a lot because what they do is they create a kind of stigma market for schools.
Right.
And
Right.
it's not right. I think that when Torlakson is talking about the API dropping across the state, that we're seeing the effects of the Great Recession, and people have less resources to devote to their kids. Parents do, cities do, schools have less resources, and it tracks right along with poverty, and we know this. And so the higher need your district is, it tends to be that you're going to have a lower score. And the unfortunate effect of that is that parents turn away from poverty, and they turn away from the school, and then they end up exacerbating the problem. Then you end up with school closings like you have in Oakland with high-need schools. Emeryville is doing the right thing, and I think one thing that we should constantly be talking about, and that I make a point to talk about, is how good our teachers are, right? And that they're good in this environment, right? And that they do provide a real measure of stability for the kids. And, I know that we're coming up with the Common Core next. That's the next thing on the horizon. But I foresee the same kind of problems with yet another test. But I just want to say that in Emeryville, I hope that, first of all, people come and check out their public school and meet your teachers.
Yeah, we have some terrific teachers here in Emeryville, and I do want to echo your comment, Councilmember Asher, because quite frankly, the Common Core is not so common. And we have about a third of our teaching staff is 10 years or under in terms of teaching, and they have lived in this kill and drill environment, taught in this and trained in this environment for 10 years. Now, some of our more senior teachers who have been here over 20 years, who've seen now the third wave of reform in their careers, they may be looking at this and saying, oh, back to the future. Now I can finally teach the way I was teaching when I was really doing critical thinking, Bloom's taxonomy, all of those kinds of things that we know really enrich a student's life. And their learning life, and their desire to learn, and a teacher's desire to teach, which is a big part of this as well. So we're all looking forward to this. Our teachers are being trained. They already began their training last spring, and that work is going to continue on this year. The thing, you make a really good point, because really quality teaching and learning is what it's all about. It's about a couple of other things too, and I just want to highlight those in the last couple of slides. So as we look at our data, we have to say, okay, what are the implications for our work, right? And what does this mean that we have to do? So we have initiated a benchmark assessment format, which is based on an INCUS report. We had audits for 2 years by the National Center for Urban School Transformation, and they recommended in the first year that we begin our benchmark formative assessment work, which is looking at student data, mini assessments rather than some big test at the end. So you're checking for understanding constantly, daily. Every unit that you're involved in, every lesson that you're involved in, you're constantly asking your students, what is it that they need to know and be able to do, and how do I know that they learned it? And so that has been a big part of standards mastery that our teachers have been involved in, and they've actually been involved in this practice for some time. The other thing that we know from our data as we do the deep dive is that we have to have more focus on math instruction and a more structured interventions for the students that are below standards. So those students that are basic, because basic does not mean that you're a C. Proficient is that, proficient and advanced. I mean, if you were to put it on an A to F type scale, basic still means that you're below. So we have to really focus in on consistency there. And then the other is that we're doing lesson studies. Our teachers are looking at each other's practice now consistently. So they're going to be learning from the 3rd and 4th grade teachers, and learning from those cohorts that are really knocking it out of the park about what it is that they're doing in terms of practice to get the results that they're getting. And then the other thing, obviously, is to Common Core critical thinking is, as I said before, is going to play a big role in the shift that we're making to a rigorous environment. The last, I think this second to the last slide, it's going to be really important that our entire system is strong, and that we have and embrace and continue to embrace, as we have for quite some time now, the idea or notion of continuous improvement. So what does that mean from a system perspective? It just means that we have to build a highly functioning team at every level. So from our teacher practice, our leadership practice, our organizational practice, and our will and skill and desire to focus on each and every student each and every day. And so, in terms of closing remarks, I really just want to say that this work is hard, and we really appreciate all of you. I was going to have a Q&A slide, I think, up next, but for some reason there you go, okay. The work is hard. There has to be a high degree of respect for all the people that are doing this work, particularly teachers and staff that are in the trenches every day. I think that it's important for us to have really, I'm going to sound contradictory here, but I think it's important for our structural rituals and routines and systems to be really tight so that people know where they can go and ask for help. They know if they get a trouble ticket in for a computer, something that's not working, that they know that system is reliable. So there's some structural things that we're working on and we have to work on more consistently to improve. In addition to that, obviously, we have to continue to hold people accountable for results, so that we are making those, having those hard conversations. And then in addition to that, that we have a framework that is actually less rigid and more flexible, so that our teachers can be the creative people that they are and do the work that they came in the profession to do. So that's it. That's my presentation, and I don't know if you guys have any questions of me or any other.
Well, thank
other
you for that.
comments.
Just wanted to build off of your comments and Member Asher's question or point. Fortunately, the state is moving towards a more multifaceted accountability system that's not just going to put so much weight on test scores. And there was a new state law passed this year that both did a lot of things. It changed the funding system and made it more equitable. It made it more locally controlled, and that's a whole challenge for the district to engage parents and the community on how we're going to spend our new flexible dollars. And thirdly, it changed the outcome accountability metrics, and the state board by October 2015 has to adopt a new set of evaluation rubrics that will not just look at test scores, continue to look at what will then be our Common Core test scores, but school climate, chronic absenteeism, graduation rates, student attendance, and other measures of what makes a school and what makes a school a good school. So fortunately, many of those indicators are things that the superintendent's dashboard are already addressing and trying to gather that she's been developing. So I think we're a little bit ahead of the curve on thinking about that, but we do need to think about our performance along multiple metrics. So thank you for raising that. Other questions or comments?
I would just really ask that you capture the amount of change by class from year to year, because I think that's something that we can talk to people about as far as the challenges in the school district. I mean, when you say 30% of the students changed from this year to last year, people can relate to that. And so I think we need a message that we can tell people and say, okay, here's the challenge of an inter-district or an inner-city school district. Remember back when you were, going to school, you might have one new student every 5 years. Well, we have 30 in any given year, or whatever the number is. So help us with that story.
I want to back up what Kurt says. We know we have the support in this community. We saw that in the bond election. And we have to continue to keep the dialogue in front of our community, letting them know this is not a suburban school district. We are right on the front lines. It's the difference between sailing on a smooth little lake and being out offshore in a boat struggling with a 40-knot wind. This is truly a pioneering effort. We are not going to give up on the children in the Emery School District.
Excellent.
I have one
Yeah.
more thing. I hate the test for lots of reasons, but there's another thing that I feel really gets left out of schooling and education, and that is the real pleasure in going to school and the joy in going to school. And it's everything from recess to rec services to sports to drama, and I think that is a way that we can really strengthen our schools and also stand out. Because if we're able to kind of bring the community together to do those things together, even in well-funded districts, that's not necessarily happening, that everyone at your school does those things together, and we could be unique in that way. And I really hope that the city is able to support the school with those kind of extracurricular activities, because our teachers do have a lot on their plate. So the drama, the art, and the sports, I think those are things that they make kids happy. They make them want to come to school. And 90% of it is showing up. So you want people to come and to have a good association with it.
And if I could just add to that, I mean, without the parcel tax, all of the features of the school that made it the best choice for my family for many, many years, we couldn't pay for them. The music, the art, the having health on site, the dance, the science instruction, the community garden, the cooking class, which transformed my daughter's relationship to salads and food. And I mean, there's so many of the programs that we just couldn't do without that funding. And those programs make all of the difference. They made all of the difference for our family, and make a huge difference for the whole community, and the sense of community and engagement. Those are the activities that got my wife and I to the school.
So I'm just going to, I'm going to take this opportunity to piggyback on what Councilmember Asher just said, because we do have a lot to celebrate in that regard in terms of extra and co-curricular. In the last few years, we've gone from 35 students in our band to 117. Our Tom Salvatore is just phenomenal, and we're in the process of resurging our music program in the after-school time at the elementary school. That's not on yet. It's not live yet, but he has a full plan for building a pipeline to continue to grow the high school program. In fact, he wound up having to put in a request for 11 more instruments because of the growth in that program. And in addition to that, if you would just follow our ESS principal at his Twitter handle to check out the sports teams, both our soccer team and our football team. They are just knocking it out the park right now, and that's wrong. That's baseball, right? It's soccer and football. But we're a Division V small school league team, and we're competing now in the preseason with Division III teams and winning.